My name is Julie Lopez, and I am the owner and founder of the Viva Center in DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C. And this particular topic today is very near and dear to my heart because our whole center has clinicians that have postgraduate training in some type of body or brain-based therapy. And it's not coincidental. It's because of some of the things I'm going to share with you today. So, therapy as a practice has only been around for about 100 years, a little bit over 100 years. And we have learned so much. We continuously evolve in our understanding of the way the body works and how our human system connects together. And most importantly, how we can affect change, which is actually what true therapeutic work is all about. You come in, there's something that you want to be different, either physically, there's a symptom that you want to change, like having nightmares or difficulty sleeping, or having struggles with relationships, maybe relationships with yourself. And so the whole point is that it's actually a profession of facilitating change. And so what I have come to find out, especially when it's about human change, is that to have a full-bodied, kind of full experience, successful change, you need to get all these different parts of your system involved. And I'm about to explain to you why. So people who have a license in psychology or social work or counseling or marriage and family therapy, or I could go on and on, are all trained primarily in practices that are based on talk therapy, which can do lots of good. There's different types: cognitive behavioral therapy, psychodynamic psychotherapy. I could go on and on. But the one thing they have in common is that they're all based on talk, which is fine. But we know, particularly within the last 30 years, we know that in order to profoundly affect change in a quick way in the body, the types of changes that really matter, right? Not just the understanding that you've been through something challenging or that you have difficulty in relationships because you don't trust other people. I'm saying those out loud just as examples. Those are concepts or an understanding that you might have. That in and of itself then doesn't make the actions and behaviors that you might have in the relationship any easier just because you understand them. So I want to talk about why that is. It's not because you're incompetent or because you're not smart or capable. It's because our body is actually storing data in a whole bunch of different ways. And those ways do not respond to words. And we see this all the time. Anytime you felt super upset and you're crying or you're distressed in some way and someone says, just calm down. How many of you in that moment have been like, oh my gosh, you are so right. I should calm down. I'm going to feel better now if I just relax. And so because you said it and I understand it up here, I will indeed relax. It doesn't work. And as a matter of fact, the part of your body that's holding the data that told your system to start breathing in a more shallow way, to have your heart beat faster, to start sweating, depending what kind of distress you're having, doesn't understand. And it's getting input that's not computing. So, and this is never the intention of the person who says, just calm down. But it actually ramps it up higher, right? Because there's data coming in that's telling our system, whoever is in relation does not see me, does not get me, does not understand. These are not the words we're necessarily saying, because I'm now talking about the types of codes in our body that are telling our whole system to respond. In the example I gave, that was about your nervous system. It was about your breathing. It was about, what other examples did I use? Palms sweating. Those are just commands that you're getting from your body. So here we are now, we're in this era of quarantine and limited activities and time in relation with no one or with only a few people all the time. And so it's this has definitely been happening, but a lot of people are experiencing physical reactions in their body from this type of environment. And I only talked about two of the things that are going right now. For a lot of people, things have been canceled, things they were looking forward to, social engagements are really limited, routines around exercise have changed drastically. And depending on how you are negotiating your relationship with the media, you may also have a lot of other inputs of data that part of your system would experience as scary. And so for a lot of people, they are having physical symptoms that don't seem to go with what they logically know, right? I'm safe in my home. I have, what I need in a basic way. But yet, because this other part of our body, and I'm going to give it a name now, this part of our system is actually called implicit memory that holds the codes. Implicit memory sounds so clinical or whatever. So I just like to call it our brain's hidden control panel. It's the part of our brain that is telling us stuff all the time, not in words, but is inspiring actions within our body. And so the real, when I used the example about relationships earlier, where someone wants to be close in a relationship, wants to have a significant relationships, wants to have closer friendships, but if the commands that are in that hidden control panel in our brain are saying, and again, I'm using words just to communicate it to you, but it's not a word thing. It's just a felt sense. It's an experience, and it's encoded in there that relationships are dangerous, and that could be in there because of previous experiences, because of stuff that we learned along the way. Well, despite every good intent, and when you're working with just traditional talk therapy alone, we know that hidden control panel does not respond to words. If if a therapist were to say to you, you are safe in relationships, that is not going to change that code in your hidden control panel. You are not going to be like, oh my gosh, yes, that totally makes sense. I'm going to now be able to tolerate vulnerability and intimacy. I'm not going to push people away anymore. I'm not going to like unconsciously sabotage people that want to get close to me. No, it doesn't work that way. And while talk therapy can, with a longer term investment, help you gain more profound insights or real feeling experiences that then inspire or start to help support actually being able to tolerate taking the actions it might need to allow someone to be close to you, in this example I'm using, there are a lot of ways to shortcut that because it's really about the code. It's really about the data that's back there in this part of your hidden control panel in your mind and helping to relearn the data in a different way. And we know, again, from advancements in about the last 30 years that are related to body-based therapy, expressive therapies, brain-based therapies, that it's possible to shortcut all of what it takes for our intellectual brain to actually catch up and take on a new code. So I want to go over a little bit, well, I've told you a little bit about it today. If you have questions as I go, just put them in the chat and I can answer them. But the types of things that I'm talking about in terms of different ways of getting into the codes are more kind of therapeutic approaches. I am going to do one of them with you today. It's an expressive exercise, and we're going to use writing. So if you have pen and paper, you can pull that out, but we'll do that in about maybe 5 or 6 minutes. I wanted to share that there are a whole myriad of things that can do this. You can do exercises on your own to start to understand what is in your hidden control panel, and you can certainly start to engage with some of these brain body expressive therapies that I was mentioning. I don't know if you're aware, but on our website, we've started developing some videos. They're short videos that are free, and you can actually start to learn about different ways that you can move some of this data. I know there's a really nice art exercise in there, because art is a form of expression. And when we do something that's nonverbal, and even though writing is verbal, well, it's not verbal, but it's the written word, the way we're going to do it actually helps bypass a lot of that logical thinking that gets in the way of actually accessing the control panel. So an exercise that I'm going to go over with you very quickly, but we're not going to do it here. It's something I do in larger group workshop formats, and it's called the Pact Method. I'm going to explain it to you, but we won't have enough time to do it, but you can certainly make notes of it. It is outlined in much more depth in like chapter 6 of the book that I have written called Live Empowered, but it's a way that you can start to get curious and actually get insights into what you might be holding in your hidden control panel. So what you do is, the P stands for pain point. So you actually put something in there, and you can do this many, many different times, but you put something in there, you write something down that you're like, if I scan my life, this is something that I'd really like to change. And right now, while we're in, this social distancing era, self-quarantine, media hits coming at us, there may be something right now that is specifically, well, okay, keep in mind, we're talking about things that seem illogical to you, where you're like, I actually know that I would do better if I wasn't so angry whenever I was around, I'm going to make up something just general, whenever I was around men, let's just say. I know that logically. I know there are good men. I know all this stuff, but nonetheless, it just kind of bubbles up within me. When it's that type of feeling where you want something, you logically know some data, but you can't shift it, that's an indicator that there's stuff in that hidden control panel that's getting in the way. So think about right now a pain point where it's got that component to it, because you may actually have some things that are really bothering you, but it makes sense because of the era that we're in. So the first step is to write that down and identify it. The second step is to take that pain point, which is really a desire that you have, it's causing you pain because you want it to be different in some way. And what you do is you take all the time you need to write down all the associations that you have with that pain point. And you want to give yourself time just to think about, when are other times when I've had that? How has it impacted my life? What do I associate with it? And that there aren't limitations, that you can just go and go. You might write words, you could draw pictures. It's really just giving yourself permission to write. The third step is categorization. You actually take those associations, and I'm reaching right now for my book only because there's a chart in here. It's like a categorization table chart in the back of the appendix. And you categorize all your associations into body or physical associations, actions, actions that you've taken that you see as related to that, smells, sights, sounds, thoughts, feelings, and irrational ideas. And did I say that too fast? I might have said that a little bit fast. Lily, if you're hearing this, could you write these down in the chat? It's body, physical sensation, actions, smells, sights, sounds, emotions, thoughts, and irrational ideas. Awesome. And you put them into categories just to start to organize them. And then the last thing, and this is the harder part. So for people who are in therapy, they can certainly get a professional to take a look at this and be curious about what they might see in it. But the T in the Pact methodology stands for trust. So it's finding a trusted person, someone that you probably aren't going to be defensive around, someone that you know that you would be open to hearing what they observe in that chart. And so you're really looking for another set of eyes that's going to help you see something that you might not already see, because we all have that part of us. We all have this section of our being that is outside of our awareness. So that's our first exercise. The second exercise we actually are going to do together. You have your pen and paper, and I didn't mention this, but in the associations part of that exercise, you can write with your left hand. And when we write with our left hand, we actually have a much better tap into what's going on in our unconscious. So when we write with our left hand, it's difficult. I'm sorry, non-dominant hand. I am right-handed, so I said left hand. For someone who's left-handed, you would use your right hand. But when you're writing with your non-dominant hand, it takes a significant amount of concentration because you're not used to it. Doesn't have the same type of dexterity that your dominant hand is going to have. And because there's a different level of concentration required, it really moves your ego out of the way. So with this exercise, and also related, let's just stick kind of with the same pain point if you had a second to identify one. I want you to write with your non-dominant hand all of your associations to that pain point. And if you can, try to think about it in a sequential order. I'm not telling you what the sequence is, but just like kind of a flow with your non-dominant hand. I'm just going to give you a minute or two to do that without talking so that you get a chance to really tap in. So those of you that have your screen out, I can see that everyone with their screen on is still writing. So that's why I'm giving a little more time. So with the writing, we're writing with our non-dominant hand about our associations with something in our life right now that we would want to change, a pain point in our life. So it could be an actual behavior, it could be an element of your life that you want to be different, like a relationship goal, relationship to self goal. It could be a lot of people right now are experiencing kind of a rise in compulsive behavior. So it could be like, why am I doing this thing? It doesn't make any logical sense. And um, yeah. Anyway, anything that comes to mind, because we identified a pain point when we were doing the Pact methodology, you can just start to write with a non-dominant hand about what you associate with that. And this is a separate exercise from the Pact methodology, but I do encourage people to write with their non-dominant hand when they do their associations. I just wanted you to get a sense of what happens when you do this in terms of writing, because it is a way to use something expressive to start to make movements with what's happening in that hidden control panel in your brain that I was talking about. So in the interest of time, I'm going to, you guys can keep working on this as you want. And of course, you can do it anytime, right? It's totally accessible. This is something that you can do anywhere you are when you want to take a break or start to look at things in a different way. People have found this particularly helpful if they feel like it's like Groundhog Day, the same things just happen over and over again, especially things that are upsetting or they feel like they're just boxed into a corner. If you're looking for different angles on what you're experiencing, it can be really helpful. And so, what are some of the types of things that I was alluding to? I want to go through those and then we'll start to open it up um, for question and answer, for that kind of custom tailored feedback if you're looking for it. So, like I said, and I'm actually reading from, this is a table that I also have in the back of my book. This is not exhaustive and it does have web references as well. Oh, this is my book, Live Empowered, but it's all about implicit memory, that kind of nerdy topic. But first of all, so EMDR, I do all the brain-based therapies, EMDR, Brainspotting, neurofeedback. These are 3 different ways that you can start to work directly with your brain to affect change in this part of your system that's very hard to access. Not just hard, but impossible. And I didn't want to talk about why that is, but I can certainly talk about that ad nauseum because I was afraid you would all fall asleep. So EMDR, neurofeedback, brain spotting are some brain-based therapies. Somatic experiencing is a body-based therapy, sensorimotor psychotherapy. Any of the different types of expressive therapies can be used to start to access some of these data sets that start to influence how your body reacts and how you experience things. Different types of expressive therapy. So art therapy, music therapy, dance therapy. There's different types of writing therapies that are actually very specifically targeted to help in an expressive way. And those can tap into what's happening in that hidden control panel. There are a lot of mindfulness-based therapies. Again, they're nonverbal. So when they're nonverbal, that's the language that this part of the brain actually responds to, as opposed to the words of like, just calm down. Craniosacral therapy or different types of energy therapies like Reiki can also help to shift and move what's happening in this hidden control panel. And I also wanted to mention therapeutic yoga. A lot of people are really into yoga. You know, it can feel so different in your body. It can certainly bring up emotions and experience. A lot of times, what's held in this code is not necessarily logical. So you might have a real emotional response. So when I'm recommending it, I actually recommend not the traditional kind of classes that we can take at the gym, although you could have emotional responses or you could actually get in touch with things that are hidden in your hidden control panel, but actually working with someone who does therapeutic yoga, like in a one-on-one, where you can actually work with the data that comes up and rework it, recode it, and rewire it, because I think that the practice of yoga can be super powerful And the reworking isn't then to sit and talk about it and analyze it. It is actually to rework it with the poses, with the breath work, with the consciousness, and actually change how it's held in your system. It can be incredibly powerful. And there are many others. I just wanted to give you part of a list so you could start to be thinking, oh, hey, what are those things that might help me? Because the Pact exercise is more about illuminating something that you were not previously aware of that may be responsible for some of the struggles with change that one could be experiencing. And then the movement of it or the recoding has to happen with some of these nonverbal types of exercises. So now I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. I have lots of stories to share, but I can tell you in my work. Well, first of all, I want to share this. I am an adopted person. I was adopted when I was 2.5 months old from an orphanage. And implicit memory, or this hidden control panel and data that's stored back there, is only stored back there in for 4 different reasons, and they're all related to this part of the brain. One is anything that you experience before the age of 3 years old automatically goes into this hidden control panel. 2, if you experience something traumatic, data that your body takes in during trauma also gets stored in that hidden control panel because that part of the brain is offline. Stress, if you're stressed out. So a lot of people are stressed out right now. They're stressed out because we've had sudden change all of a sudden, because they've lost a lot of things from the extreme, which is loved ones, like deaths, but all kinds of things, like just the loss of being able to move around or having freedoms. There are a lot of other losses. Any types of rituals that are going on, funerals, birthdays, weddings, graduations, those are all radically different because there's no hugging, there's no gathering. So all these rites of passage. And so people are experiencing lots of loss, and loss can be processed. Grief work, there's a whole art to grieving, and not that there's a way to do it good or bad, but there is a way to help your system keep processing so that you can get back to equilibrium. And a lot of us don't process or push it away or try to deny it because it feels like that's going to be better, right? Avoiding it. But really, there's a way to process it out so that it doesn't start creating physical reactions. And I did say I'm going to do a future topic on grief and loss because we have a lot of that going on right now. But when you're in a stressful situation, that is another one of the ways that data, when you're in stress, a lot of data can just go right back into that hidden control panel. And the fourth one is if that part of the brain, which is called your hippocampus, if it's injured, like if you have a brain injury. So for me as an adopted person, I do and did have a lot of trauma in those first few months of my life. And so I became interested in this whole area of study about 25 years ago and really have focused on that because it's personal for me. And it's been a game changer in terms of being able to change the way I experience my day-to-day and how I've really been able to get rid of some pretty significant symptoms that I used to struggle with